The part where it's all about debating. And to start off with, a topic that has become vital for a lot of different players in fashion, and it's sustainability. Hence, sustainability is the new black. Daniel Mensch is the moderator in this debate. He's been on a mission to bring sustainability thinking into the fashion industry since 2007. So when he helped to develop the Sustainable Fashion Academy in Stockholm. And now, a decade later, he keeps his finger on the pulse of sustainable fashion as Director of Sustainability Education Development at that same academy. He will go into debate with three participants, three fashion industry veterans known for their passionate work toward a sustainable industry. Geert Bruloot is the first one. He was the first retailer displaying the works of Anne Meulemeester, Martin Margiela and Raf Simons in the designer store Louis in Antwerp, where he initially only accepted Belgian designers. For his shoe store Cocodrilo, he strictly picks out brands with a strong philosophy. And he was also the curator of the MoMU exhibition Footprint 2 years ago. Second participant is Bruno Pieters, known for his avant-garde creations and rigid silhouettes. He worked with Martin Margiela and Christian Lacroix and stood out with his own couture collection and was praised by Suzy Menkes, amongst others. After the couture came the ready-to-wear collections, then a sabbatical, during which he traveled through India and gained new insights, which led to Honest Buy, a 100% transparent company, production and price-wise. Third participant is Aileen Larsen. She's Sustainability Director at Philippa K since 2011. Larsen has been working for the company since 1996 and is driven by passion for finding sustainable solutions for the business and society and for creating change together with people in the whole ecosystem of the industry. Daniel Mensch, the microphone is all yours.
Right, thank you very much.
Wat een idee, ja?
Just a few words before we get started. What I can say is that when the organizers suggested the working title, Sustainability is the New Black, I was skeptical. Because as I've always understood, the expression is the new black. It's all about being the latest, hottest topic, the new that eventually will die out. As a sustainability professional, that's not the way I think about sustainability. So I was about to approach the organizers and suggest a new title, but then two things happened. The first, I challenged my understanding of the concept, of the term or the expression. And that's a good thing to do, challenge what you know. So I looked it up. What does the new black mean? And I found a nuance that I actually kind of liked. So the new black, when a color is described as the new black, it's when that color becomes so popular that it rivals the reliability of black. And I thought there is something that I can actually work with, because reliability, the longevity, there I can see sustainability. So for me, I wouldn't say sustainability is the new black. What I say is sustainability is black. It's the reliable, it's the long-term, it's what needs to be there. And if black as a color wants to share that space, it's invited to come in, so that's fine. The second thing that happened is that I kind of realized that I'm quite happy, or I wouldn't be so sad, let's say, if the term sustainability actually became the hot topic. And in many people's opinion, sustainability is the hot topic, or is one of the hot topics. But if the term sustainability were to become popular and then die out, I wouldn't be so sad. As long as the mindset that we need to prioritize people and planet when we're creating and using fashion, if that remains, I'm okay with the word sustainability moving aside. The fact is that a lot of people actually have a hard time with the term sustainability, with that word. It sometimes is considered not so engaging, it's not so sexy, it's not so exciting, particularly among fashion professionals. What we could say is that, sustainability, it also can be a bit confusing or not clear. What's included? What are we talking about? Are we talking about animal rights? Are we talking about water pollution, hazardous chemicals, factory workers not being paid a living wage? Are we talking about climate change? These are topics that we can embrace, we can engage in, we can become passionate about. So these are the things that maybe we can get excited and focus on. But I will defend the word sustainability for one thing, and that is the word sustain. It reminds us that we cannot keep doing things the way we are doing today. We cannot sustain that if we want a planet and a fashion industry in the future. Now, what we're going to do today is we're going to unpack this term sustainability with the limited time that we have, with the help of are seasoned professionals with very different perspectives. So they're going to help us look at sustainability and how we can attack it from different ways. What I can say is I was actually very pleased when the panel got put together. And what we have is, you heard the presentations, but we have Filippa K, we say in Swedish. K, I've learned. Filippa K, we'll call it. Filippa K has been around for a while, let's say, 25 years, founded in Stockholm, has a distribution network of about 50 stores in 8 countries. 5 of those stores are here in Belgium, some online distribution. And Filippa K bears the name of its founder, more or less, Filippa Knutsson. So that's one perspective that we have. The next perspective is Honest Buy, which is relatively new as a brand. Been around 7 years, I understand. 6 years, I'm corrected. And Honest Buy has the bold name you could say is bold in putting in the name a promise about sustainability, about transparency, which is a very interesting example. Honest Buy, as opposed to Filippa K, only online distribution. And then our third perspective, almost to the contrary, we have a pure retailer. So we have a brick and mortar retailer, among other things. But as a business, we've got a retailer. That's one important perspective, but it's always important to realize that we have different roles in companies. So Elin is the Director of Sustainability, and Elin comes to us, or came to that role, through logistics and supply chain. Bruno is a trained designer, and probably that doesn't escape anybody in this room. And Geert is a renowned curator and a retailer. So we can say we have 3 different roles there as well. And we have 3 different individuals, right? We have our own personal perspectives of the world and our things that get us going. So what I want to start with, and I'm going to actually sit down now, and what I want to start with is we want to maybe unpack this word sustainability. And I want to ask each of you, as individuals now, so as private citizens, maybe, let's say, looking at the fashion industry from outside, what would you say are the biggest challenge, or let's start with the one biggest challenge, if you can hold it to that, regarding sustainability for the fashion industry? And we'll start with Elin.
Hi, everyone. Well, the biggest challenge is that we act as if we have several planets, but we don't. We have one. And I think Kenneth E. Boulding put it really wisely already in 1966, where he compared planet Earth to a spaceship. It's what we have with us on the spaceship. That's all we got. So we are dependent on vulnerable reserves. We are dependent on we actually acting together on this planet, and we're dependent on the planetary boundaries. And being part of the textile industry, being the second most polluting industry after oil, a very resource-intensive industry, we have some major challenges to face. And
So resource-intensive industry, that's a big challenge that you see. Bruno, let's go to you.
Well, I think the challenges or my personal concerns are child labor. I think yesterday I saw on the International Labour Organization website that 152 million children are still working today. I think when it comes to fashion, child labor, whether it's high fashion or high street fashion. Child labor has almost become a rule rather than an exception. You can have an expensive dress, but nobody will be able to tell you who was working on the cotton field. Animal welfare is another concern. Animals are treated as a commodity. Leather is one of the most, unfortunately, toxic products in fashion. But I think my biggest concern is this mentality of putting profit above life. And if that could change, I think everything else will follow.
Thank you. So we have child labor, animal welfare, and this overall
the mentality
and prioritization, what we focus on. And here we had limited resources. Geert.
Well, I am in fashion since a very long time, and I still love fashion a lot. I love creativity a lot. But as I'm also a person, a human, and I love people, we work with people, we need people in the store, I am very aware of what fashion as an industry is doing to our nature, to our future. I have the age that I will probably survive the next 20 years with global warming, but I see many, many kids here, and I see all your children eventually, and we cannot go on living like this and not offering them a bright future. So we are breaking down our resources, our nature, our world. When I was investigating a little bit before coming here on numbers, I realized that sustainability in fashion is much more than only the production of garments. It's also the taking care of what's happening afterwards. What do we do with these garments? Do we wear them? Do we wear them enough? Do we throw them away? Do we reuse them? Do we recycle them or not? Do we need all these garments? And I'm also aware that the urge to buy all these garments or these clothes is mainly something that is part of a whole social urge, a social pressure. We have to travel to all these places. We have to go to the Biennale in Venice. We have to go to live in that kind of house. We have to live that way. We have to eat in that restaurant. Who says we have to? Can't we make happiness around us? So I think if we could take away this social pressure and be more personal as a consumer, that we can make much better choices regarding sustainability in fashion.
Thank you, Geert. So this perspective is focusing, and your concerns are in around consumer, what we're doing with products as consumers, textiles, fashion, but also the societal pressures. So these are big questions that you have. And I saw you actively nodding your head. So these aren't questions that are exclusive, but it's interesting to hear that we have different starting points and maybe focus points when we think about sustainability. Now I'm going to ask you as business people. As we talked about, you represent 3 different companies, 3 different business models. Let's start back with you, Ellen. If you would say, what is Philippe K, what do you see as the biggest challenge that Philippe K needs to solve?
But it's actually concerning the lifestyle issue, I think. How can we support a sustainable lifestyle? And it goes down to the purpose of Philippe K from the very beginning, actually. So that we want to show that simplicity is the purest form of luxury, and that kind of goes back to what you said. It's not only about the clothing, but also how do we live.
I'm not a producer. I'm a retailer, so the production part is in your hands in the first place, and that's I know that the first step is there.
So of course, so it's both in terms of looking at the production, but then in the other end of the business model as well. How do we offer fashion in a more sustainable way? So. And that you've been talking about also, how can we make sure that the clothes get used over and over and over again? So, and in the end, make sure that they are well taken care of and become new products again.
Right. So Philippe K as a company, the challenges that you're facing are very much in line with what you individually see as the big challenges of limited resource, and how do you create a business model?
Yeah, but it's not only about limited resources, really not. It's about everything that we've been talking about. So I really don't want to. It's wider than that.
Fair enough.
So, but it's more about inspire a movement of mindful consumption, and that includes how we produce, what materials do we work with, how do we produce our clothes, and how do we offer it to our customers in the end.
Right, so it's an inspiring business model.
Yes.
Interesting. Bruno, what would you say, in Honest Buy, with your business model, what challenges do you see that are most related to your company?
Well, for me, I think the challenge is less about the production process, but more about breaking stereotypes about what sustainable fashion means. I think it's become kind of my mission to share that, for me, sustainable fashion doesn't really exist. There is only fashion, and some of us produce it in a responsible way that will allow human life to continue, to sustain, and others don't.
Okay, fair enough. And let me just ask you, why, very quickly, do you have any ideas, opinions on why others don't?
Oh, I can't say why they don't, but I know that for me, I mean, to put people who work in a responsible way in a different box, I wouldn't do that because I think it scares off customers, and it's not necessary because it's just about a way of working. And in the end, I think none of us want the consequences of not working in a responsible way.
Right. Thank you. And here, just for finish with you.
The business model for us is completely different. As I said, we are retailers. We don't produce anything. We depend on the fashion houses and the designers where they can offer us or what we can find. So the challenge for me is within this system where we have to follow trends and hypes, where we have to be loyal to big fashion houses, to designers, where we still try to support creativity by adding unknown brands, small experimental designers and so on. The only thing we can work on, I think, is on the awareness of the customer. Explain the customer what we try to sell. Explain the customer why this product is better than the other product. Of course, we are a store. We can close down if we want, but we don't want to. So within this system, which is a kind of a tricky system, we try to control what we sell and make the customer aware of the choice they have.
Thank you. Let me ask, we're talking about sustainability, lots of avenues that one can take, lots of challenges that we have across the board. Bruno, when Honest Buy was started 6 years ago, you had a clean slate, and you could choose, okay, where am I going to start? Where do we begin? And you made some choices. Can you share with us how you came about to choose and prioritize what you're doing, and maybe give us some insights into what it is that you're focusing on?
Well, I wanted to focus on transparency because I think sustainability without transparency means nothing. It's hot air. And I believe that's what I wanted as a customer, and I believe that's what other people also want, to know exactly what it is they're buying. Because in the end, buying is like voting, and you vote for the future you want to see, you vote for the mentality or the way of working, and you need to have all the information about a product in order to make the right choices. So
it sounds like the incentive, the drive to work with transparency kind of came from you as a customer.
Yeah,
you did what
I love
you would
fashion,
want to see.
and I love buying fashion, but especially in luxury fashion, like this year there was this scandal at Louis Vuitton where they discovered that the shoes that they produce are not made in Italy but made in Romania, where people earn 150 euros a month, but they still label it as made in Italy, which is perfectly legal in Europe, but you're still charging the customer for a product as if it's made in Italy, and it's not. So I knew this has been going on for years. And that's something I wanted to do something about, you know. Instead of complaining, I thought I will just do it myself.
and in this process, when you were thinking, okay, where do we get started? What do we focus on? What did you choose not to do? You had to strategize and prioritize away certain things. What were some of those things, and why?
Well, I chose not to sell to other retailers, to have complete control and freedom to do whatever I want, and it's never been my ambition to, or investors, we also said we won't have investors, because I see it more as a mission rather than a business almost, even if we do know it's important to have a healthy business. But I like to use fashion also as a creative person, as a tool for change rather than a tool just to make profit.
All right, wonderful. Over to Philippe K. Philippe K, as we talked about, has been around for 25 years. Next year, yeah? And what I understand, sustainability maybe wasn't always a strategic question. But can you help us understand, when did sustainability become a strategic question, and how did that happen, and how did you and your colleagues choose what path to follow?
Yeah. No, I mean, the philosophy from the beginning was to make clothes that can last for a long time, both in terms of quality and style. And I guess for many years we increased the number of sustainable materials in our clothes, and we tried to decrease the negative effects in production and address social issues in our value chain. But I guess we came to a point where we realized that that is not enough. And I think it was in the same period as Al Gore's The Inconvenient Truth came out, when we became aware of the planetary boundaries. And we realized that we need to change completely. So then we decided on 5 commitments for ourselves that we should reach in 2030, saying that we should only work with sustainable materials and that our styles should be recyclable, that all production should be in a sustainable way, and that means to know that we need full transparency. So that's part of our strategy as well. The third one being not producing more than we need, to be really resource efficient in that time. And then the fourth one being making sure that everyone that's been involved in our product have good working conditions. And then the fifth being that we want to run a successful company in the future as well. So when you have that mindset, we really need to start adapting to the new conditions coming. But it was quite an ambition, commitment that we set out for ourselves. So after 2 years, we realized we needed, some sort of guidance on how to get there. So then we developed this internal framework.
What was it called? The
internal framework that we call circular fashion, which is a guidance for us on how to adopt a circular economy, which we think is one of the important solutions. And actually moving away from the linear models we have today, where we take one resource in one end, we produce, consume, and then end up as waste in the other. And instead have those circular models, just like nature's ecosystem. So since then, we are devoted to our 4 R's. So it's about reduce, repair, reuse, and recycle. And we do a lot of initiatives within those steps to start transforming ourselves, because we already had a running business, so we couldn't start from a blank piece of paper.
So circularity has become the kind of the model, the framework that that's guiding you.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, listening to Bruno and talking about transparency, how does Philippe K work with transparency? Is that something that you're doing to the extent that Honest Buy is doing?
No, we're not at the Honest Buy's level yet. But it's our ambition for 2030, or our goal to be there. But for now, you can go in on our online store and see who made our clothes, how many workers the factory has, for how long we've been collaborated, the actual address, and so on. So it's a step-by-step approach, and we will get there.
So you're getting some transparency. And let me ask the opposite question too. Philippe K, working with circularity. Honest Buy, are you working with circular principles?
Well, I think it's wonderful, circularity. I am all for reusing or recycling materials. I think at Honest Buy, we believe that we make something that will last and hopefully will be passed on to the next generation or donated to a museum. Or I think that can also be a way of having a full circle.
So, but at this point, you don't have any programs for taking back, hiring out?
No, I think we show the way we work, and I think it's up to the customer to decide if that's something they approve of or they prefer another way of working, and yeah.
Let me ask Geert, as a retailer, when you hear transparency and circularity, are these things that you can support, contribute to, or are there other ways you as a retailer can work?
Yeah, of course, this is it's very important. What we miss as a retailer, we try to, as I said, we try to make the customer aware of the choice they have. So we try to explain why this kind of shoe is more expensive because it's handmade with leather tanned in the country, this and that you can repair it. We have our own repair service in the house, which works perfectly well, so that you don't have to throw away the shoes and so on. But a part of that, what we miss is the support of the fashion communication in the fashion media in our society. We feel that sustainability in fashion is still seen as something alternative, as something hippie-esque, as Aya Noel has written down. We did a test with trying to sell sneakers by Rombout, a fantastic project of sneakers that were vegan sneakers where no leather was used, and we didn't sell any because people were scared. They thought our feet will start sweating, we don't know, it will fall apart, and so on. It was seen as alternative, you see? So that's the big issue. We need as retailers, we need much more support of the media. The communication of the big houses is very important. Because the transparency is not in all the big fashion houses what they use. We try to control what we sell or what we buy to sell, but it's not always clear if the sneaker is made here or there, because many ways can be found to escape that. And also what is important that we try to go for, to explain to the customer that the choice of something that lasts, something that can be used for years, that as a style also can last. And that you don't, buying a hype is great and it's fun to buy it, but you know that next season you have to throw it away because you're not the hype anymore. So we are working with that, but we try to change the mind of the public also into the other direction.
Let me take that point, and if we turn even more toward the customer, the consumers, and this will be a question to all three of you. In your opinion, what is the role of a retailer or a brand related to providing information to the consumer, or going a step further and educating the consumer, or even further engaging in a dialogue with the consumer? All of these things take time, it's an investment. How do you see your role?
Well, the problem is that the customer has to be open for it. And when I talk to many of my customers about the cheap fashion, how good it is because you can buy affordable fashion and so on, and it looks good and it's much more democratic. But when I mention the word slavery, they close the eyes and they go out. They don't want to hear it. So we all have to want to hear it. There is no excuse anymore for not knowing about the disaster that is coming towards us. We have no excuse anymore, and we have to act now, today. And that's the thing. So educating the customer is something we try to do and we do all the time, but the customer has to be open, and I think it's more a problem of our society. I had a discussion with you about the use of plastic bags. Here in Scandinavia, I have the idea of the feeling that sustainability or ecology is much more a common thing in the society. Here, the use of plastic bags is a normal thing. There was a try from the government in the beginning of this year to ban it, but it was stopped before it got to Parliament. And I can say there is one big example in Rwanda, of all places. There is a total ban on plastic bags with big fines on it if you use a plastic bag. So it's just the mentality that has to change, and politicians are very, very, very aware of all of us, because we have the power to vote for them. We have the power to decide. So if we force the politicians that they have to change, they will change. That's the whole thing.
So what you're saying is that you have this role, but you need help. You need a structural change, a context, that as a retailer you can't do it alone. You need some preconditions for the consumer to be receptive to these sometimes difficult points.
Yes.
To take
yeah, totally. And of course, there is also a price tag on this sustainability. If the motto remains chic et pas cher, nothing will change. You see? So there is a price tag on it. Somebody has to explain me a dress at Primark of €8. Someone has to explain me that. I don't understand anything of that. You see? So we have to be aware that we need to make a decision now, and that there is a price on that, and buying less but buying better maybe.
Right. Was a perfect segue. Thank you very much for that to Bruno. A company founded on informing and being transparent, but if we take these kind of different levels of engagement and informing, educating.
Well, I've been trying to do all these things for 6 years now, and it can be very frustrating, and I think anybody in this room who's trying to create change will know how frustrating it is. And but I think what helps me is to ignore the masses and focus on that minority that has the ability and the possibility to change and buy better and ask questions and make more informed choices. And that group is growing. So that's where my hope is. And of course there will be people who don't care. I mean, some people don't care about themselves. So I try to ignore that.
Right.
Yeah.
So choose your battles.
Yeah, just focus on the good. And I think it's more inspiring to continue like that, and in the end you will also, in discussions with friends or family, I think if you want to make a point, remember you will always catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. So
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Good message to take home. Elin, what do you think? The role of Philippe Kay, your role to inform, to educate, to engage in a dialogue?
All of them, actually.
All of them.
Informing in terms of for the customers to be able to make a conscious choice. Educating in terms of helping them take care for their garments. How do they wash? How do you mend things so that they can live for a long time? And engaging through dialogue is so important so that we actually understand the needs of a customer, so that we satisfy a need rather than just solving a problem, because sustainability alone will not make it happen. The product or the service, it needs to be attractive, it needs to be sexy, it needs to create engagement in order to sell. And we actually, last year, we started a pilot program where we asked our customers to become pilots, to try out our products and our different initiatives, like our second-hand concept or our rental concept.
I received one of those emails, by the way.
You did?
I did.
And the engagement, the responses we got, they were so big, and we had long motivations why they should become pilots. So it really shows that customers do want to engage and have an impact. But what I would like to finish off with is that there's this fourth part, which is inspiring the customers that you were talking about as well, which is really important. So, for instance, the last campaign we did, we called Not That Complicated, where we actually showcase that you can get 18 looks out of just 7 garments. So it's a way of trying to show that it can be simple sometimes to do less.
That's an interesting curation idea, actually, that you have.
I just want to add that it can sound like a heavy task to make responsible choices, but I think the people who do understand that there's a lot of responsibility that comes, but also a lot of power. It makes you, I think the consumer is an ugly word, but it is the most powerful person on this planet. Everything revolves around money. And if you know that you have that power to control certain things or determine our future through your purchases, that can be a fun thing to do as well.
Excellent. Continuing to think about the customer and the consumer, it's interesting now that we see the generation that are growing up in a connected world, and it's an information-intensive world. So these things that we're learning about, they're also learning about, and probably at a more rapid pace. So if you think about and try to imagine the customer in 10 years out, let's say 2030, and we think about how the consumer, the customer may be acquiring fashion. I'll say acquiring and participating in fashion. Let's have your views on what do you think that looks like in 2030. We'll start with.
Well, I think we already have an example in food. We're all aware of our food, what we eat. We check if it is sprayed, if we want to buy bio-food, we want to control where it comes from and so on, because it touches us immediately. We can get sick of it. Tomorrow you can be sick of it. So sustainability has to be seen something like that we can decide what we want. We decide now where the direction we go out. So for the future, what I see, one of the very nice phenomena in society that I feel is the kids 16, 17 in general, who do not want to own anything anymore. They don't want to have a car. If they need a car, they will find one to share, or they rent one, or they will stop, or whatever they do. So this owning of items in our life is changing with the kids. We have the Arab boys that come in our store to buy the designer sneakers. A lot of them come by 3, and they buy all together one pair of sneakers that they share between each other. It's great. It's great. You see? So I think that we are in a moment of change. Change means new ideas, new systems, innovation, new techniques. It's a wonderful time for young people now to live, because all these things have to be invented. How will we live together? How will we move around on the globe? What we will wear? What will we eat? It's incredible. So I'm not pessimistic at all. I'm very optimistic, but we have to act now.
I'm excited. Thank you for that. Wow.
Yeah.
Elin.
Yeah. So looking ahead, I think that sustainability is a natural part of everything. So it's not even going to be talking about it. And by then, it will be more expensive and harder to make the bad choices. Not as it is today, because today is the other way around, right? So I think we will be able to enjoy fashion. And we will see multi-diverse wardrobes with a mix of own garments, pre-owned garments, rented garments, and that wardrobe can be updated in different speeds without being defined as good or bad.
Inspirational, thank you. Bruno.
I think Geert is right when he says we have to act now, because I think the future depends on what we do today. So I hope designers who feel concerned, or parents or teachers, will lead by example, and that the younger generation has something to look up to, because they will not figure it out on their own. And I hope that in the future we will not have that word consumer anymore, because today we act like consumers. Most of us, we just shop without asking questions, without really caring. We just want to see if it looks good on us or which brand it's from. So I hope in the future, or today, people who feel concerned will shop in a more humane way, and make sure that the clothes were also made in a way that reflects who they are.
We had a chat coming in about the price transparency that Honest Buy has pioneered. And we kind of talked about, well, who can understand that? And maybe those of us in the fashion industry, if we look at pricing for a garment and what it costs along the way, we can understand if that looks reasonable or not. But we talked about, well, maybe the consumer today would be confused by that. Do you think in 10, 15 years' time, the consumer will be interested in this, looking at the transparency, where it's coming from, what factories, supply chain, how it's been made in that way?
Well, I think our customers today are like having the information, and I think that's the most important thing, to at least offer it, and then the customer can do whatever they want to do with it. But to offer it, I think that would be the logical next step, and I think it's normal to know exactly what you're buying.
Right. Excellent. Okay, with that, I feel very inspired. I hope you do too after this optimistic view of the future. I'm also very inspired by the work that you're doing and countless other fashion companies that we work with at the Sustainable Fashion Academy. So I'm even more optimistic now. And I'll stand for this part. This is the really inspirational part. What I'd like to challenge each of you to do, now that you've heard that we have 3 different perspectives, people look at sustainability differently, they attack it, they make it their own. I'd like to challenge each of you to think about what it is within the realm of sustainability that makes you most passionate, what resonates with you, what do you think is the biggest challenge? And then in your companies, think about, am I doing something? What more can I do where I'm not doing it now? Pick something and think about what little step more can I make? What's the low-hanging fruit? Because I think we can all do that, and once you get started, it becomes momentum, and others join, and others follow. And with that, I'd like to thank all of you, thank the panel, of course, and thank you for your attention. I know I'm going to promise you're here for the mingle, so if you have questions about Philippe K, questions to Elin, she will be here. I think you are leaving us, are you? So I'll post your email address and your telephone number. No, I suppose if they want to contact you, they do it through your website, if you have questions. Although Bruno did tell me that if you're a student and you want to do an interview or a paper, they don't really have time for that, because they get lots of those requests, not so surprisingly. And then Geert, you'll be here for a while as well, or yes. So questions for Geert will be out mingling. So with that, oh look at that, 1 second and we're done. So thank you very much.